Number 1, follow your bliss. Number 2, whether one is bound by an iron chain or by a golden chain means, in both cases, to be bound. Both imprison the doer. Number 3, the 2 greatest disappointments in life, not getting what you want and getting what you want. And all 3 of these quotes kind of work together to kind of tell you that following your bliss might be the path that you really need to take. Because I know in my work, I deal with a lot of people, and not a whole lot of them are actually following their bliss, and I think that's contributing to their patterns of pain that they're in. Following your bliss, to me, means that you are so taken by a subject or a discipline, a type of employment, that it has completely changed the way that you function in society. All your previous concerns about money and fame, and, well, if you think about fame, or importance or status, you just don't care anymore. Now, I found that through posture restoration and the world of human asymmetry and how it influences movement and how you can use posture restoration and knowledge of asymmetry and the brain to help people get out of pain. I was so caught up by this asymmetry because it explained my whole life. And I could, once I really understood it, I literally could never look at biomechanics, weightlifting, strength and conditioning, physical therapy, or anything the same way again. It has so captivated me because it integrates the realms of psychology and music and dance and singing, the arts, breathing, movement, emotion. All of it is brought under the umbrella of asymmetry and just basically the human brain. So following your bliss, I went with it. I didn't even think I was going to be able to make a career out of it because I'm not a physical therapist. So that's a long story, but I followed my bliss and I was able to become self-employed, something I was never actually able to do. I had no plan. I started a YouTube channel. No one was watching. COVID hit. People started to watch. And I was the only YouTube channel that really was talking about posture restoration at that point. Now, other people have jumped in, but I was the only one. And I was only doing it because I loved the subject so much. So I had no master plan. I don't even really believe in planning to a large degree because, as you know, even with COVID, you have a plan and then things change. So I don't plan too much. I really follow my bliss. Wherever my interests take me that I'm very passionate about, that's where I go. Now, the man who coined the term "follow your bliss" was Joseph Campbell, and he was a scholar of mythology and religion. And the way he said it was, I always tell my students, go where your body and soul want to go. When you have the feeling, then stay with it and don't let anyone throw you off. And in this world, you're going to bounce between, likes and dislikes. You post a video, you post an Instagram, one goes viral, 30 really go nowhere. And that's just the world, the way it goes. And it can get very discouraging when you put a ton of effort into a video and the algorithm doesn't promote it because people aren't searching for it because they don't even know what they're searching for. But if you have that bliss, you're going to keep doing it because you can't do anything else. And that's where I am in my life with posture restoration. A lot of the videos I post, a lot of the videos that I post, no one's going to actually watch it because most people are not going to understand it. But also, they're not even searching for it. But I still have to get that information out there because I feel it so deeply within me. And that really is following your bliss. And eventually, things might start to work out. And the best thing about following your bliss is that it's not bound by time or by changing circumstances. It's always there for you. It doesn't depend on someone else's decision. So many of our jobs that we apply for or so many of the professions that we're in depend on the approval of others, other people liking what you do, commenting on what you do, being accepted, an algorithm that you can't master. And it can breed envy and jealousy of people who you think are like, this guy's an idiot, or this is ridiculous information, do this one stretch to fix everything. It's absurd. But that's the way the world is. If you have a bliss, you won't get caught up in that, because it's always there. So whenever I get a little bit thrown off through work or whatever it's going to be, I have this fascination of these subjects that I can just delve into, and all the materialistic concerns, the concerns of everything I was just talking about, kind of fall away and get put into a much different perspective. Because it's easy to get your mind taken into different directions in this age of advertising and mass media and social media. It's a lot harder to detach yourself from that because, fear of missing out. But when you have that bliss, when you have that contentment of doing something that's changed your whole way of looking at life on this earth, well, your happiness is definitely going to increase. And as your happiness and contentment increase, maybe your pain and tension levels will start to decrease. If you like this video, could you please like it, comment, share, or subscribe to the channel? I'd appreciate it. So the second is whether one is bound by an iron chain or by a golden chain means, in both cases, to be bound. Both imprison the doer. Now that's going to sound a little abstract, but it comes from a Buddhist philosophy way of thinking. And what they're saying, if you're in a helping profession, you can think like I am. You can think, you can be obsessed with helping people because you actually get a deep sense of contentment, a bliss out of it. But that would be a golden chain. Like, you're doing something beneficial, but if you attach to it too much, you're then sowing the seeds of your own discontentment because you can't help every single person. Or your intentions are good, but someone says, oh, you didn't really help me. That's happened to me. So you don't want to be bound by a golden chain. You could be that person who's the most religious. You could be the person who's the best parent. And that could be your ego. That could be how you define yourself. But at some point, that might fall apart. And where do you go from there? You're attaching yourself to a character or a persona that might fall apart at that point. And if that happens, some very religious people then start to question their religion. Some people are parents, and then horribly a child may die. You're now no longer a parent. You're a CEO, and you're helping people, and that's what you've taught yourself. You're doing this for the good of society, and then you get fired. Things like that happen. That is the facts of life. So you don't want to get attached to that type of chain either, even if ostensibly it's a really golden chain because you're doing good for the world. Now the iron chain, again, that's the cycling of samsara. I don't even know how to pronounce it, whether it's samsara, but it's that Buddhist wheel of cycling, that wheel of suffering that you get stuck on, craving, and we're gonna get craving next. But you're insatiable. You want more and more and more. You can never be satisfied, and that's the human condition. Because we're always searching for more security, more accumulation, more money, more whatever, and you're never satisfied. And it leads to a very deep sense of discontentment. When you follow your bliss, you don't really worry about that. I can tell you, it's an amazing thing. All those earthly, worldly, materialistic concerns that most people are after, and in northern New Jersey, trust me, that's what most people are after. I see it all around, but I've been able to insulate myself. About 10 years ago, I really started to insulate myself from all that marketing, that messaging, and not spending money on crap that I didn't need. And that's what we do a lot of. So the iron chain is pretty self-explanatory stuff. You're being held, led around by a chain by your desire. The golden chain is a little bit harder, but you have to see it in yourself, and I've had to see it in myself. I think that you call it maybe like a not hero pathology, but a hero complex or a savior complex. You can't fall into that trap either. The book Unwinding Anxiety, which I did a video about, he has a section where he's talking about that the fact that wanting more activates the same brain region as wanting less. The common denominator is craving or wanting and getting caught up in wanting more or wanting less. It's a push and pull. You want pleasant things and you want to push away unpleasant things. And again, that's craving. That's what leads to suffering. That's what the Buddhists are trying to break, that cycle of suffering, of wanting more. Now, whether it's an iron chain or a golden chain depends very much on your point of view on things. But it really comes down to craving, which is, if you are familiar with Buddhist philosophy, is why they think people suffer. They think that's the origin of suffering, is that the craving, grasping, and trying to hold on to things that can't be held on to. So craving, you can crave to be successful, rich, the best parent, the best CEO, the best business person, the best YouTube creator, the best Instagram creator, the best coworker. You could be craving, this is interesting, to be free from pain. You could be craving to be the most holy. But you could also be craving, and some people do, they crave to be the best drug dealer, the best thief. You could be craving to be a lot of different things, and it's still craving. Because really, the brain's not making judgments. Craving is craving. We then label certain activities as judgments, depending on the context and the environment that you're in. There's one area of the brain called the posterior cingulate cortex, and it's the brain region that is activated when we get caught up in experience, when you're in the midst of wanting more or wanting less, craving more, craving less. But it also quiets down when we meditate, are mindful, or otherwise let go. It's the only brain region that was activated both during delight and disgust. So whether you're craving more, the golden chain or the iron chain, again, that's a judgment call depending on your situation. If you're craving, that area of the brain is lighting up, but letting go of it, simply becoming aware of the situation, that posterior cingulate cortex will die down. And that's what's so fascinating, because a lot of people, especially if you're in a helping profession, they might call it like the God complex or the savior complex. You do want so badly to help people, and you're not going to be able to help everybody. And the third, which is so easy to understand, the two greatest disappointments in life are not getting what you want and getting it. And that's what so many, and again, this goes back to the craving issue. You want something so bad. I have a friend, he was desperate to become the best salsa dancer that he could ever possibly be. Now, at that point, I was already pretty good. And so I'd already been, I've already had danced in New York, New Jersey with a lot of the best dancers. And, when you're not at that level, you want to get there. But when you get to the top, the problem is you have less people to dance with because no one else, or there's lesser really good dancers, so you don't have as many partners to dance with who can hear the music the same way that you do, or have the athleticism that you do, or just have the skills that you have. So I already had that realization, but he wanted to get there. And I told him, I was like, look, be careful what you wish for, because if you get to that top, you're going to get up there and you're going to look around and there's like, wow, this stinks because there's no one to dance with. And so it's actually the dance career, at least for myself, the most satisfying it was when I was learning, when I was in that mid-tier. Not when you're a beginner, because that's not as much fun. But when you start getting good and you're still in that mid-tier, there's so many potential dance partners to dance with because they're kind of on the same level with you. But then as you get better and better and better and you rise up, that the available pool of dance partners who can kind of keep up with you and allow you to have great dances is much smaller. So you just kind of start to have less fun. So that's the great disappointment, when you want something so bad and then you get there and then you realize, oh, it's not so great. And that's really, that is Western culture in a nutshell. The amount of people who want to be something and they finally achieve it and it's not enough. And then they find the next thing. And again, that's the cycle of samsara, the wheel of desire, the cycle of desire and craving that you get stuck on, that the Buddhists are trying to get you out of. It's so obvious once you experience it. But a lot of people, they experience it, but then they don't realize what just happened. And then they go for the next thing. They don't realize they're never going to find that happiness. They're never going to find that satisfaction. It's not that life is suffering. Life is not suffering. Once you become aware of the behaviors that you're engaging in, there's a certain dissatisfaction to life when you get stuck on this cycle of craving and wanting and grasping, and everything keeps changing on you. And you're never satisfied. A lot of people never wake up to this. They never have this awareness, and thus they are never happy. I think I probably work with a lot of those people. I certainly was one before I became aware. And when they're not following their bliss, they're just following the next thing, or they mistake bliss with dopamine highs. That's where people get stuck. They never become aware. They become very left hemisphere dominant, which is right side of the body. They can't see the bigger picture, which would be left side of the body. And thus their human bodily asymmetry becomes very asymmetric, and now they start to hurt for a variety of different reasons, and they think they have a bad knee. There's no injury. They think they have a bad back. There's no injury. It's tension. But that tension that's coming from the autonomic nervous system, which means the brain, can be coming from a lot of different places. And if anyone gets anything out of my YouTube channel, that's really talking about postural restoration and human movement and human asymmetry and brain function, I would really like to get that across. The reason for your tension is manifold. There are so many reasons, different influences that could be creating the tension that you're experiencing as pain. Now, the great thing about these three sayings is that if you become aware of your iron chain or your golden chain and you let go of it, and you become aware of getting what you want can lead to disappointment just as much as not getting what you want, if you can really put those into context and make use of it, it means you're more likely to follow your bliss because you're not going to be distracted by those flashing lights, the dollar signs. You're going to stick on your path. You're going to stick with it. And if you stick with it, you will have that fulfilling, that sense of not the dopamine high, that sense of satisfaction and contentment and community, because you'll have people that actually realize this person really believes in what they're saying. They're not fake. You can really connect with people on a much different level than if you're just chasing around a bunch of different businesses. So the more you understand the last two, the more you're likely to follow your bliss. And I think you'll probably have a lot less bodily pain.